There are hot Japanese girls, horse-headed killers, and Dr. Evil goes ham on firing lasers. This is Luke with Popcorn Recap, and today we'll talk about a 2020 Japanese sci-fi thriller TV series called Alice in Borderland. The death game that wasn't as popular as Squid Game, but totally should have been. Before we start, be sure to like the video, drop a comment, and of course subscribe to Popcorn Recap if you like the summary here. The first episode begins with Arisu getting an earful from his brother about being a console peasant. Tired of his brother's PC master race rants, Arisu decides to leave. On his way out of the house, his father disowns him for being a console peasant. Outside, Arisu sends text messages to his friends Karube and Chota. They don't reply right away because Karube is busy kissing his boss's woman, and Chota deals with his mother's financial needs. Arisu continues pestering his friends until they finally send a reply. Karube reveals that he lost his job after getting caught by his boss and punching him in the face. Chota then says he's skipping work, and the three friends decide to meet up at the busy Shibuya station. At the station, the three friends talk while watching the bustling streets. After a while, Karube carries Arisu on his shoulders to celebrate his independence. The three then goof around in the middle of Shibuya Crossing, one of the world's busiest intersections. Several seconds of nausea-inducing footage later, they stop messing around after causing a traffic accident in the intersection. Noticing the police rushing towards the accident, the three friends run and hide inside a toilet stall nearby. First of all, yuck, and also not a good idea for improving your street cred. Moments later, the electricity goes out, and the group decides to leave the toilet. When they emerge outside, they're shocked to discover that everyone is gone. Distressed, the boys separate and look around the city to figure out what happened. Each of them is in disbelief after realizing that no one is around. They regroup back at the station and talk about each other's findings. Later that night, the three continue to figure out what happened while sitting in the middle of the Shibuya intersection. Then Arisu says what happened doesn't seem too bad. Karube is confused about Arisu's statement, while Chota agrees with him. Chota says they can now do anything they want and not worry about anyone getting in their way. Karube tells them about a big problem, and that's Arisu's and Chota remaining virgins if no one else is around. The two brush Karube's warning aside and start celebrating. Suddenly, a big screen in a nearby building lights up and informs them that a game is about to start, and receive directions for the game arena. Arisu then sees a bright red light shining in the distance. The three friends decide to go to the game arena, hoping to find other people there. They arrive at the game arena building and continue following directions until they find a table filled with smartphones. When they each pick up a phone, a facial recognition program activates, and they get informed about the game's details. While the three try to figure out what is going on, a woman named Shibuki arrives and tells them about the borderlands. It turns out that once you cross the borderlands, you can't leave unless you clear the game. If you leave before that, you get killed. Shibuki takes one of the phones, and moments later, a schoolgirl arrives and unknowingly joins the fray. They get a message that the game will commence. The game's name is Dead or Alive, and its difficulty is 3 of clubs. The conditions for clearing the game are simple. Select the correct door within the given time limit and make your way to the building's exit. The group enters the first room and finds 2 doors. One is labeled Life and has a picture of an anime girl, and the second door is labeled Death with a picture of a skeleton man. While they figure out what to do, the timer starts running and an unknown gas leaks inside the room. Shibuki implies that the answer is life, so they should open the anime door. The schoolgirl panics and rushes to open the anime door. Weeb alert. She gets killed right away with a laser from above. Shibuki then opens the other door, and the three friends follow her to the next room. Behind them, the entire room ignites into flames, and the time to clear the next room gets shorter. In the next room, Arisu confronts Shibuki about killing the schoolgirl. She justifies herself by saying that they're alive because of that. She believes that it's a game of sacrifice. Since the clock is ticking, Arisu decides to be the next sacrifice but is too weak-willed to pull through. Karube steps in and tells Shibuki that she'll be next. Karube goes for the life door this time and is correct. The group quickly moves to the next room and avoids getting barbecued. Karube then tries forcing Shibuki to open the next door, but she's too scared. and refuses. Karube then turns to Arisu and asks him to use his gamer skills to figure the puzzle out. Since he's too scared, Arisu's gamer brain isn't working. Realizing this, Karube punches him, and Arisu instantly enters gamer mode. He thinks for a while and chooses the death door. With 10 seconds remaining, he opens the door and is correct. Arisu goes full gamer mode in the next room and correctly figures out the game's logic. With Arisu's guidance, the group starts clearing rooms pretty quickly after that. As they reach the end of the puzzle, something doesn't go to Arisu's predictions. The next room doesn't adhere to Arisu's calculations, so he rethinks his strategy. He figures it out with 5 seconds left on the timer, and the group rushes to the next door. Unfortunately, Chota's left leg gets caught in the flames, and Karube goes to carry him. Arisu finds the exit in the final room, and the group clears the game successfully. Outside, they receive a 3-day visa for the game's 3 of clubs difficulty. While Arisu and his friends try to figure out what that means, a battered-looking man appears. He then gets killed by a laser after revealing that his visa has expired. That's one scary immigration system. Arisu looks up at the sky and we start seeing multiple lasers find their targets across the city. It's like a hellish mix between fire and rain. The first episode ends with an unknown Zumba instructor watching the laser beams rain while she's standing on top of a building. Episode 2 starts with a flashback of the Zumba instructor's life before the game. Her name is Usagi, and when she isn't working as an instructor, she trains to be a Spider-Man stunt double. Usagi's father saves her from falling during a mountain climbing training session. Back in the present, she promises her father that she'll survive while watching the lasers fall from the sky. The next day, Arisu fails to find a car that's working. Inside one of them, he finds a plastic bag of rotten fruits and vegetables. After meeting up with Karube, they decide to look for supplies that they can use. They go to a mall and learn that every electronic device with an IC chip no longer works. Chota believes an EMP is the reason why the devices no longer work. Later, the group dines together and eat canned goods gathered in the mall. While eating, they learn that Shibuki entered the game 3 days earlier than them. Arisu realizes that the time of summoning can be different for each player. Shortly after, Karube asks Shibuki what she was doing before entering the game. Shibuki recalls that moment, and it turns out that she was busy servicing her boss. She tells the boys that she was working when she discovered that everyone was gone. Technically, she isn't lying. She also reveals that she's the only survivor of the previous game she entered. Karube accuses her of sacrificing other participants, and she defends herself by saying she did it to survive. They continue trying to make sense of their situation. Then, Arisu states the one certainty that they know, and that's the existence of a game master. Later that night, Karube and Arisu talk about Chota needing a doctor for his injuries. Karube then suggests that the two of them join the next game alone. He believes it's best to become more familiar with the games to protect Chota. He adds that it's also a way to find a doctor that can help Chota. Arisu agrees, and they set off to join one that night. Shortly after, Usagi moves to the location of the next game. She finds several people waiting for the game to start as she picks up a phone. Arisu and Karube also arrive and pick up phones without hesitation. Arisu surveys the competition and notices a white-haired, J-pop looking guy listening to music. At Mr. J-pop's feet, Arisu sees a Walkman device charging. They get a notice that the game will now commence and that there are 13 participants. A newbie tries to ask Arisu about what's happening, but Karube stops him. Karube then says it's better to act like Shibuki and avoid being dragged down by newcomers. Then, everyone gets notified that the next game's difficulty is 5 of spades. Karube wonders what that means this time, and a man named Nitobi steps in and says it's a physical game. He explains that the suits dictate the type of game players face. He says that clubs are team battles, spades are physical, diamonds are tests of wits, and hearts are the most troublesome because they involve betrayal. He also adds that the numbers mean the level of difficulty for each game. This time, it's a game of tag, and the players must avoid the tagger while looking for the safe zone in the building. On top of that, if the players fail to find the said safe zone in 20 minutes, the bomb hidden in the building will explode. Back at the mall, Chota is praying when Shibuki arrives to check on him. The two talk about his relationship with Arisu and Karube. It turns out he looks at them as saviors for befriending a loser like him. Shibuki believes Chota is just like her, so she tells him they should be allies. Meanwhile, the game starts on Arisu and Karube's end. The participants go to their desired starting points and wait for the tagger. When the tagger appears, participants start dying. Arisu, Karube, and Nitobi discover that the tagger wears a horse mask and carries a submachine gun. They run away, and the two friends get separated from Nitobi. While that happens, Shibuki makes her move on Chota. To prevent the little cherry boy from declining her alliance request, Shibuki kisses Chota, undresses, and prepares to ride him. About to cross the bridge of pleasure with Shibuki, Chota prays to his god, thanking him for the meal he's about to enjoy. Itadagemasu. He then sees a memory of his mother giving an offering to their religious leader. He also sees her get brought into a private room and left alone with the leader. It turns out that his mother also services him to gain favor from their god. Back at the game, Arisu realizes the tagger's limited vision range due to the horse mask. He informs the other participants about this and hopes to get a better chance at clearing the game. Mr. J-Pop believes that no one will respond to Arisu, but is proven wrong by Usagi. He then sees Usagi in action and is impressed by her skills as a Spider-Man stunt double. Arisu sees the tagger shooting at the newbie player and saves him. After that, the group encounters Aguni and his disciple. They decide to team up with Karube to take on the tagger while Arisu looks for the safe zone. Arisu agrees with the plan, and Usagi arrives to help him too. Aguni and Karube prepare to ambush the tagger while the disciple acts as bait. Aguni sacrifices his disciple and begins the ambush attack on the tagger. Aguni and Karube enter CQC mode to double-team the enemy. Karube takes his knife, climbs on the tagger's back, and starts stabbing him. The tagger throws Karube flying towards the wall and takes his knife out. Now that's a knife. Karube tries to dodge the knife attacks but gets hit and cornered. Then, Mr. Thug Life Aguni drop kicks the tagger and they prepare to go mano a mano. Meanwhile, Arisu continues to look for the game's safe zone, but is having a hard time. After pausing for a bit and activating his gamer brain, he finally discovers where it is. He rushes to the safe zone's location and encounters Mr. J-Pop. It turns out Mr. J-Pop isn't all looks, but has the brains too. The two enter the safe zone, but quickly find out that a second tagger is waiting to ambush them. After dodging the tagger's attack, Mr. J-Pop uses his makeshift Walkman taser to counterattack. The tagger quickly recovers and retaliates, forcing Arisu and Mr. J-Pop to run for cover. Arisu hides in a nearby room and discovers that they need to press two switches simultaneously to clear the room. He calls for help, and Usagi quickly moves towards his location. Karube hears his friend's call but can't move because of his wound. Meanwhile, the first tagger corners Aguni and wounds his face. Aguni gets out of the sticky situation. He then enters beast mode and starts dominating the enemy. Arisu and the second tagger get into a fight, too. With only 10 seconds remaining, Usagi arrives to help Arisu. Superhero landing. Mr. J-Pop throws his Walkman taser to Usagi, and she used it to disable the second tagger. Arisu and Usagi then jump to press the switches and succeed at the last second. Game cleared. After that, they learn that the taggers are also players. After failing to stop Arisu's team, the taggers die. Moments later, Karube finds a radio from Aguni's dead disciple. He then hears a transmission saying, "The answer is in our hands now, and get back to the beach." When Karube looks back, Aguni is no longer there. The transmission plays again, and the second episode ends.
Subscribe for more videos like this. Turn on notifications and leave a like. It really helps the channel.